Welcome everyone to the TM webinar. And some of you have been here before, and I see some of the names are new, so welcome. And today we're going to take a different perspective. In the past, we have experts coming to share with us about developing manuscript, responding to reviewer comments, how to be a reviewer, and so forth. And those are all very experienced senior faculty members or academic staff who have years of research experience. And many of the questions came out during those webinars actually came from early career researchers. So I thought it will be very familiar to them to hear someone who just started their academic career and who have made some efforts and have made some progress in doing scholarly research. So today we're gonna do some experience sharing by early career researchers, and we have three excellent panel members here with us, and we have Sarah Veda from Griffith University, and we have Simone Bianco from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and we have Bora Kim from University of Surrey. So I guess to start off, I would like to have each one of you briefly introduce yourself to the participants so that they know how long have you been doing this, where you're from, where you're currently at, and anything you want to share. So shall we go with Sarah?
Yes, thank you, Kathy. So before I begin, I just wanted to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Yagara and the Turrbal people who are the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which I'm joining you from, and that's Mianjin in Brisbane in Australia. And I also extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So my name is Dr. Sarah Vanda. I'm originally from the beautiful islands of Fiji in the Pacific. I'm currently a postdoctoral research fellow at the Griffith Institute for Tourism. I completed my PhD from Griffith in 2019, so about 4 years ago. And my research focuses on how tourism and travel can contribute to the well-being of both tourists and workers from the lens of positive psychology. I'm also a scholar from the Pacific, so I'm also a very passionate advocate for delivering research impact, particularly on the sustainable development of tourism destinations in the Pacific. In addition to my PhD, I also have a Master's of Arts in Development Studies from the University of the South Pacific, as well as a Bachelor of Business from the University of Queensland in Australia. Prior to joining academia, I used to work in the industry for about 10 years, specifically on destination marketing at Fiji's National Tourist Office, as well as managing different externally funded projects across the University of the South Pacific. So prior to coming to Australia to do my PhD, I was an associate lecturer at the University of the South Pacific in Fiji. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. A very interesting, diverse range of experience and background. Simone, would you like to share?
Yes. Hello, good evening, Professor Xu and Sarah. Good morning, Bora. And welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Simone Bianco. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Hotel and Tourism Management at Hong Kong PolyU. I am originally from Italy. That's where I did my bachelor. I did it in Campus Lucca, which is a satellite campus of the University of Pisa, where the Leaning Tower is. Then I joined the industry for a couple of years working in hotels, after which I continued my education at the University of Delaware. This is where I did my master. And again, after going back briefly to the industry, I studied my PhD at Virginia Tech, which I finished last May. I'm very, very fresh. And I started my job at Hong Kong Poly at the beginning of August. My research focuses on strategic management. Specifically, I'm interested in understanding the dynamics of competition among tourism firms, because I really think that competition and the pursuit of competitive advantage really is the main reason that leads companies in our industry behave the way they do. So studying that opens a door into how they are part of the society, how they contribute to it, how they could contribute also better. So my research focusing, yes, about competition or how multinational corporations compete, both on the international level and on the local level. Thank you very much for having me tonight.
Great, thank you. Bora?
Sure. Hi, nice to meet you all wherever you are. Very exciting to have this conversation with other ECRs as well as more experienced academics. My name is Bora. I did my master's and PhD at Penn State and graduated 2020 summer. So it's been quite 3.5 years since I joined the University of Surrey. And currently I am working as a senior lecturer and a co-director of learning and teaching for SHTM. And before that, I'm originally from South Korea, and I did my undergrad at Kyunghee University in Seoul. And I worked briefly at finance department in the Millennium Hilton Hotel Seoul. Oh, my research interest is about corporate social responsibility, and I examine both environmental and social sustainability, and that includes ED&I. And naturally, I am also interested in strategic leadership, because oftentimes top management team is who are shaping and driving these forces and allocating resources to their corporations and organizations to achieve this sustainability agenda. Nice to meet you all.
Great. It's great to have people from different backgrounds, different geographic area, and now working in different geographic areas. So it's a very good combination. Since I have you here, Bora, would you like to share? I would like to maybe have each one of you just spend a couple minutes or any amount of time you would like to share one successful publication journey that you went through, maybe from the beginning to the time of acceptance, or even after acceptance, that journey, that experience, any highlights or any exciting points, challenges, anything you want to share, just that one particular journey with the participants.
Sure. Should I go first?
Sure.
Yeah, I was actually reflecting on some of my papers and which one that I would like to share so that it can be helpful to other ECRs. And I would like to choose my very first publication, which was about CEO narcissism and CSR. I just calculated how long it took me. And I had this idea by the end of my first semester in my master. And then the submission date was actually April 17th. So that is full 4 semesters. That is 2 years of my master's. Of course, that doesn't mean that I spent all the time on this one project, but it just had a good idea. It just reflects how much time it can take, especially for the first publication. So I had this idea, but when it comes to data collection, I had to collect many hand-collected secondary data. So for example, I had to accumulate decades of company reports, for example, because I had to measure CEOs' narcissism. So that included manually downloading and checking press releases, conference calls, earnings calls, transcripts, and so on. And one of the items was actually counting how many times CEO was mentioned by their name. So I had to read everything. And then, for example, a CEO's name was William, and I would count how many times like William was mentioned. But then William can be other William, and oftentimes William can be called also Bill or Will or something else. And then if I can figure that out, I'll just go back and count it again, and so on. So I still remember vividly in my office that I would have to do that. So I think after those painstaking data collection, I was having some poor eyesight later on, and then everything else was ready for submission. And finally, that had been submitted to TM, which was all worthwhile because it has been published in TM. So I think those kind of longer, prolonged process would kind of be sometimes needed because it's your very first publication. So I would always think back how rewarding it was to see my name on the publication, and then I would actually print out those very first paper, and then I was smiling on the corridor. Oh yes, this is the final product, and then yay. So I was having this poster for this idea because I had to present it to different conferences and different method and different outlets to disseminate the idea. And then I was hoping to throw away this poster after having published. So finally, when that time came, I was really happy. But the revision process took me about 7 months, I think. So the first revision, I just had to take a very careful approach because it was a very precious opportunity for me to address those comments and then get it published. So I was extra careful when I was doing this first round of publication, and then it was subsequently published.
So you only had one revision, or?
Yeah, one revision.
Oh, wow. That's very good. Very good record. Great.
How about Sarah? I think you're
Yeah,
on mute.
Sarah.
Yes, actually, Kathy, I had prepared just one slide.
Sure.
If I could just share it.
I think you can.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I wanted to share my own personal experience of publishing, but this one is particularly with tourism management. I had published before, but I'm proud of this one in particular because it was my first A-star publication as first lead author. And so I wanted to share, the publication was called Welcome Back, Repeat Visitation and Tourist Wellbeing, and that was published last year. But I wanted to show this whole overall slide to give, those who are listening in, the reality is, the timeline for publication, like Bora mentioned, it takes a lot of time from the, the formation of the idea until publication. But in this particular paper, it started back in 2020. And again, I'm showing this timeline not to demotivate or sort of deter people from wanting to publish academically, but it's really to show it does take a lot of time. And there are various reasons why things take a lot of time, because obviously you have another job, this is probably a side project, and you have life outside of work and family commitments and things like that. So that actually adds to this particular time frame. So the initial idea for this paper was formed during the COVID-19 pandemic because of the border closures. So I wasn't able to travel back home to Fiji to see my family and my friends. So as a coping mechanism, I really just reached out to repeat tourists to Fiji through different social media platforms. And then I just started interviewing them online and talking about their experience about visiting Fiji multiple times. And during that particular phase, I also reached out to Associate Professor Sebastian Philippe, who's also at Hong Kong PolyU, because not only is he an expert in tourist well-being, but in fact, he was my PhD confirmation examiner as well. So he really guided me, and he was a mentor throughout this whole process. And this research, because it wasn't funded, I had to work on it during my free time. So in fact, in 2021, I had to put this project on hold because I secured another full-time position as a research fellow. And so one whole year, nothing was done on that project. And then I resumed that project in 2022. And that was really when it was fast-tracked to a publishable sort of stage. And sort of some initiatives that I took into account during that phase was I invited co-authors on the manuscript as well. So I invited Brent Moyle and Sarah Gardner, also from Griffith. And then I engaged in a research assistant to help in collecting the data. And so I also offered her co-authorship onto the manuscript. So in that 2022 was really the time when a lot of time was spent on the manuscript, and we submitted it in July 2022. The manuscript went through a major revision in October. There was 3 reviewers. And the response document was actually 37 pages long, which shows that it was really major revision. It went through 2 rounds. The second round was still a major revision, but 15 pages, much better than the 37 pages. But I found that the reviewer comments were very constructive. And it felt like with tourism management that they tried to give a chance, even though it was a major revision, they really tried to give constructive feedback on the paper. So even though it felt like, oh, this is a lot of work, it really felt like the reviewers were really trying to help us as a team to get it up to a better standard. So that particular publication, Jenny, I think it was a continuously learning process for me, especially in publishing in an A-star ranked journal.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I may ask you some question later about your co-author and how did you decide to work with other people.
Sure.
So okay, Simone.
Yes, thank you. I will also share a publication that I have on tourism management, the only one so far, to be honest, which is about dual branded hotels. I try in this publication to understand how should dual branded hotels enter the market based on incumbent competition. This actually started from reading industry journals. I was reading industry journals and everyone were talking about dual branded hotels. I was then talking to the industry, to some friends that I have, and they were all very interested in the topic. And it was really connecting to my readings. I liked, I still like and read about agglomeration theory. So I try to understand how co-location of any firm affect society and the destination in this case. So I thought that it could be interesting to understand how dual branded would create these agglomeration externalities and eventually gain from it. So I started this paper after talking to my advisors, which are part of the paper. The idea obviously changed. The more I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but every time I talk to some people about my ideas, then they tend to change, and most of the time for the better. And then at the end, I was able to submit it to tourism management. I had 2 rounds of revision. And the first round, one reviewer asked me to change completely the methodology. It was a really big change, a really major revision. But actually, it really improved the paper. It really gave it a different spin. I moved from a normal random effect model to a multi-level model, which really, I believe it really changed the paper in positive. So to me, it was, so now when I get a paper into review, I don't feel that reviewers are only gatekeepers, but I really learned that they could improve the paper a lot. They could really help. And it also helped me when I'm on the other hand, when I'm reviewing, I try to be as more constructive as I can. Even when I reject, I try to give as more suggestions that I can. So it was a really interesting journey. It was long because from 2021, then it was published in 2023. So it took around 2 years, but is a paper I'm more proud of. So that was a nice thing to share.
Yeah. So the 2 years, including the time you conduct the research?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Great. I'm glad that you learned the reviewer comments are helpful. And very often I'm an author myself. So when I get long lists of recommendations or suggestions from the reviewers, you kind of pretty much need to take a deep breath and digest it for a couple of days before you react, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay. So you 3 shared a success story. Everything sounds easy, although I know it's not easy. So at least you get things published. What would you say are the most important traits, or what were the most important characteristics that help you to get things published? Not only the one you share, I'm sure you have others, publications as well. What do you think are the most important characteristics that helped you to get to where you are now? Simone, you have the microphone.
Okay. So I think that so there are a couple of characteristics that I think they are very important, at least to me. So one is diversification. My topic is not many people in the industry do my topic. So being focused on strategic management, I think it was a very good thing for me in certain extent, especially for publishing. And also because it gave me the opportunity to clearly state what are the practical contribution and the theoretical contribution. So I think it's very important to have both in every paper. And also knowing the industry, I believe is a very important part, because not only because yes, we can see what are the practical contribution, but because we can really, if we understand the nuances, we can see how general theory applies or not apply, so that we can actually contribute to general theory by using our field, not simply apply what is done generally to our field. And then obviously time management. I just is my first semester as assistant professor, and I underestimated how much time it would take to do everything else about research, like teaching and some surveys and mentoring students. So I think time management is fundamental in the way that I try to set long-term objectives. Like, I don't know, I want to submit this paper by this date in the future. And then I do every week, I need to show myself some work done. So that I think it also helps a lot. These are the two main: knowledge of the industry and time management, at least for me.
Okay, great.
Thank
You mentioned a very important point about knowing the industry. One challenge that we find is now a lot of the PhD graduates or early career researchers, they haven't really had an extended period of time, like you mentioned you had, working in the industry. So that will be a challenge in identifying real life problems to solve with a research question, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Bora.
Sure. I think for ECRs especially, one of the most important traits would be resilience. As I mentioned with my very first publication story, I think it's really important to have this resilience in the face of challenges such as manuscript formulation, rejections, demanding revisions, or other peer pressure is the word that I hear a lot from other ECRs as well. Even though you think you're doing great, but you look around and then see those huge, I don't know, thousands of publications that other people seem to have, then I think in all those circumstances, I think resilience stands out, because oftentimes when you do not have successful track record just yet as an ECR, I think you are just not sure if you will make it. So I think having this healthy amount of optimism and resilience would be the key to stay on track, first of all. And then the second one I would say is having this identity as a researcher, so that we can have this genuine curiosity. It's not just for the sake of publication, but what can we do with our research, and how can we solve some kind of problem that interests you, I think is a good trait to have as a researcher. Even though we're ECR, I think without those sense of belonging to the research community, I think it's really easy to lose sight and demotivated. So I would pick those two.
Okay, great. I like your term, healthy amount of optimism. That's very helpful. All right. Sarah.
I agree with Bora. I mean, resilience is definitely up there as one of the traits. I think also hard work. Being in academia is so tough. It's absolutely challenging, especially for an ECR. So everybody's sort of in the same boat, but it's just hard work, perseverance, and just having a never give up sort of attitude, especially in this publication process. But I think apart from the personal traits, there are certain things that ECRs can do to try and move along in their publication journey. I think it's really important, well, speaking from my experience, it's really important to have good mentors who will guide you, who will also be on the manuscript and guide you through that particular process. With the publication that I shared, originally, we were aiming for just an A-rank journal, but when I had invited my authorship team on, they really saw potential in the manuscript and said, hey, let's try and aim for an A-star, and I never thought that I would, but then, you know, it was just that push and that guidance from my mentors on that manuscript that really helped me to get that A-star publication. I think also as an ECR, we can also have that mindset of we're still a PhD candidate. So even though we lead authors, we feel like we have to do the whole manuscript, we have to do the whole revisions. Well, that was from my experience, but now being an ECR, I always try to make sure that I activate members within that authorship team to say, okay, we've got some revisions, you know, maybe you can work something on discussion, someone else can do on, you know, contribution to theory. And it's really important that to be mindful of just making sure that everybody shares the load fairly. And I know as an ECR, it's difficult. It's a difficult journey to navigate as well. But I think in addition to personal traits, there are certain things that us as ECRs can also activate to help us move along in this journey.
Yeah, great. And that not only is for ECR, but also depending on the culture. I think for some culture, it's easier to say, let's share, right? Let's do equal amount of work. But for more hierarchical culture context, it may be a little more difficult. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's a good point about sharing the work. You have to do the work to get credit, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah. And how did you, because you earlier on your slide, you talk about approaching somebody at the very beginning. Did you know the co-author that you were approaching, or how did you establish that initial contact?
Like I mentioned, I just reached out to Associate Professor Sebastian Philippe. He was my, because I referenced him a lot because he does a lot of the work on tourist well-being, which is in my area. And then my supervisors brought him on as my PhD confirmation examiner. And I just reached out to him just randomly and said, I'm doing this particular project. Would you be interested to be a part of it? And so he said, oh, it's such a you know, interesting piece of work, and he'd be interested to be part of it. So it was a bit awkward at the beginning just to reach out to someone and say, oh, hey, do you want to be part of this project? But I think you have to put yourself out there and then just try your luck and see if you know, you can get especially people who are experts in that particular area to help you. And there are a lot of academics out there who are more than willing to help.
Yeah, great. That's an excellent example. So I'm gonna see if the participants have any questions, or if there's anything else you would like to share, feel free to jump in anytime. I see we have 40 some participants. If any of you have any questions, feel free to turn on your mic to ask any questions that you may have with your fellow ECRs. I do see a lot of ECRs on my screen. By the way, can you just briefly mention about the research methods that you used so that they will have a better understanding of the approach that you've been using? Laura?
Yeah. I am widening my tools at the moment, but my main methodology that I use is econometrics, quantitative rather than qualitative. But after my PhD, my research interest expanded. Therefore, more tools were needed. So currently, I'm working on mixed method and qualitative as well.
Okay. Simone?
I use quantitative data, secondary data. I don't, because of the nature of my research, I don't really do interviews. But I'm also expanding as Bora. I think that learning some qualitative tools would be very beneficial, will give me some access to some nuances that there is no data that can access these nuances. So I'm trying to expand, but so far secondary data.
Okay, Sarah?
I'd say mixed methods. I did my PhD, I used quant structural equation modeling, but for this particular manuscript, to be honest, there was nothing innovative about this particular method. It was just interviews, online interviews, and just thematic analysis that was used, but I think it was the topic, and because now after COVID, the focus is on well-being, and there's a lot of research that's been done in that area. So I think that might have been the draw card for this publication.
Okay, yeah, mixed method. Last time when I had the editor's office hour, that question pop up. Mixed method seems to be in fashion now, and some comments were made in that regard. So I think there's a couple of comments in the chat box. One struggle that I'm currently facing as a new faculty member is how to handle multiple tasks while squeezing limited time on research. I feel that it is difficult to concentrate on solid ideas within a short period of research time. Although Simone mentioned on time management and thinking about long-term goals, it will be deeply appreciated if such a suggestion could be more specific. I don't know, what is your teaching load like, the three of you, if you want to share a typical week or a typical day to be more specific in terms of how you manage your time, that will be appreciated, I'm sure. Simone, since you mentioned it first, you want to share?
Oh, thank you for the question. If I were to tell you the secret sauce, well, I'm still figuring that out. I'm trying to understand how to survive. And actually in this first semester, I didn't do as much research as I wanted to. So what I meant there was that, for example, I'm now planning my next semester. So I decided how many papers I want to submit at the end of next semester, so that at the end of this week, for example, I need to write that part of the literature review. I normally in papers, I mostly look at I mostly take care of the idea, the introduction, the literature review more than the methodology itself. I tend to collaborate with people that take care more of the methodology. So I say, okay, this week I need to do that. And so far is kind of working, I would say. But yeah, there's no secret sauce. And I also force myself to have some, not days off. Obviously, we all know that you cannot have a full day off, but half day off, or do sports, something to keep my mind off, because I realize that if I only work and then the quality of the output is very bad. But if I'm able to do something else, then I'm able to work better and more efficiently in the time that I work. So this is what I'm doing. That's what I did for doing my PhD. But yeah, I'll let you know in a year or so if that works.
How many days a week do you come to office, or do you work? I shouldn't say you come to. You can work at home.
Work 7 days. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And you take half day off, right?
Yeah. Or some evenings. But some work every day. Unfortunately, that has to be done.
All right. Sarah.
I've been fortunate to have to be in a research intensive role for the past 3 years. So prior to that, I was teaching. So I was very intentional with the role that I decided to go into after PhD. I think because especially after PhD, you really need to raise your research profile and your outputs. And the only way to do that really is to be in a research intensive role. So no teaching was required in this postdoc role, and that's the reason why I was able to focus on research. But having said that, I mean, even in a research intensive role, there are multiple projects that you're juggling in the air all at the same time. I guess, like Simone said, there's no secret sauce or recipe to it. This is just time management and just prioritizing deadlines, making sure that, what deadline is in first, you get that done. And really, like I said, if you have an authorship team, try to activate those members. But I also found something really useful is the supervision of PhD candidates. I have 4 PhD candidates that I'm currently supervising. And I found in terms of your research, being part of different teams at the same time, the whole burden is not on you. yourself to lead the project. You can get your PhD candidate to lead one particular project. You take a back seat, so in that way, you still raise your research output, but at the same time, you're being strategic about it.
Okay, great. Bora, any additional items to share?
I think looking at the question, you said you are a new faculty member, and looking back in my own experience, I think the first year, especially the first semester, is the most hectic one, as you have to figure out your systems, new faculty members, and navigating everything, basically. I even had to record every lectures because I joined, during the pandemic. So I think the first semester, usually there aren't a whole lot of time that you can solely focus on your research. In my opinion. So I think it's not abnormal, I would say. So I think it's, if you're doing research still, I think it's still a win. I would say for the research, what I started was kind of having this little simple research note or kind of journal. It doesn't have to be fancy, but I just kind of made a list of which research question that I want to answer with my research. It doesn't have to be something that I've been done already. If I was interested in something else very new, I would just still write it down, and then whenever I meet somebody whose research interest is in line with those questions, I would initiate some kind of conversation and see if we can collaborate together. One thing that's very interesting that happened to me recently was when I was doing dishes, I was listening to some radios, and then when I heard about something about vaccination mandate going on in the United States, that was still under pandemic, and they were asking those customers to present some kind of evidence that they were vaccinated to be able to sit down and then receive some kind of service. And I thought immediately, another news that somebody just punched on the face the employee because they just didn't like how they were treated because they were asked to present some kind of evidence to be able to be served. So I thought this is really terrible, and it should have some kind of effect on employees. So that's when I kind of initiated this new research project about customer incivility and how that affects employee turnover and so on. So I think those kind of casual incidents can also give you some kind of research idea. So I think just keeping your mind open and staying curious as a researcher would kind of help you.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, very good comments. Keep our eyes and ears open, and everyday life has lots of research opportunities presented. Great. Emily, do you still have a question? I saw your hands raised a while ago.
Not a problem. Hi, I just wanted to say hi to all my colleagues. Hello. Yeah, great, Sarah. You made it. You are awake. So we were talking just a few hours ago that she has to keep, awake because it'd be late in Australia. I wanted to say hi. And I have seen that you all presented, great journey. You have a very strong research background. But question, more like a discussion with Sarah as well. Sometimes when you start a topic, and perhaps that's not, your current most urgent topic, you had an idea, right? And then, as Simone just mentioned, the teaching comes on, all this overwhelming thing come on, and then you kind of drop it a little bit. And then you feel like, okay, how do I reach out to my co-author or the person to pick it up? I guess Sarah and I have something to say about that, right? We wanted to work something together about big data and well-being. And I think we even collect the data, we tried, but I guess, life happens and we have been putting it there, haven't picked it up. So I wonder, for all of you, do you have experience about that? And how would you have any technical story to share to kind of reach out again to start a project, right, Sarah? I saw you just presented this TM paper. Actually took you like almost 2 years to get it done, right? You must have lots of up downs. So would you like to share with us about that?
Yeah, actually, Emily, with this particular project, we started it on, I think it was last year, and we had a really, we were on a momentum. We were really excited about the project. And then everything started coming into play. Like, there's a comment earlier about how do you manage like different projects that are running at the same time. But I think also an issue that perhaps either the panel can also add is, the issue about funding. We have really good research ideas. We want to do multiple projects, but one of the issues would be funding. Where can we access funding to help our projects get published? And just like with that TM paper, that was unfunded. And I was lucky enough that I had one of my authors on the team had some research surplus and said, let's engage in a research assistant so we can hurry this data collection across. So I was lucky in that sense. But with Emily and I's idea, it's stalled because really we have to access funds to push it along. So perhaps if others could also share on maybe a successful way that you've found funding, even if it's just a little bit of funding, would be useful for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Doing research does take money. Yeah. Bora, do you want to talk about the funding opportunities at Surrey or in the UK in general?
Sure. Funding is something that was new to me as a fresh PhD graduate. So I think I started small, like pump priming funding, which is internal. And then there were some small pot of funding that helps you collaborate with industry partners, especially SMEs. So I think I targeted that so I could start small, but still it was a good opportunity to work with external partners and then kind of broaden my horizon to think about industry challenges and so on. So I think I would firstly target those small step, and then you build up on that so that you can target a little bit of a bigger grants such as ESRC in the UK.
Okay, great. There is a question before we go to the specific question for Simone. There is a question about how do you pick a journal? Which outlet do you aim for? Do you always go with the highest ranking journal first, or how do you decide which journal your particular piece of research will fit the most? Sarah.
I usually just aim high first, either an A star, A journal, and then I try and exhaust, because there's so many tourism journals at that level. And we always, I think in academia, we're all pretty much high achievers. Otherwise we wouldn't be in this, in this particular journey. So we always have to try your luck with the A stars and the A's, and then always keep trying to improve it. But always, if you're unable, and there is always a home for that manuscript, and if it is at a B journal level, then so be it. But I think always try to aim high at a top tier journal first.
Okay, Bora.
Yep, I think I would share that advice as well. Aiming high would only give you a better quality manuscript, I would think. So I think it's a good way to start with. In terms of journal selection, of course, depending on where you are, each institution might have different criteria that you might want to consider. For example, some countries have different metrics that they use versus in some other geographic locations where each institution might have different list of journals that you have to target first, and then you can move on. So I think practically those could be your first priority, but otherwise impact factors and different audience and different aim and scope that each journal has might be a good starting point that you consider to pick a good home for your manuscript.
Yeah, absolutely. Need to look at the fit. Different journals position differently. So make sure that you fit the scope of the journal. Otherwise, you keep getting desk rejection. That doesn't make you feel very confident, isn't it? If the same paper get desk rejected 2 or 3 times, then you feel like, oh, something wrong with this. So yeah, fit is really important. Okay, there is a question about the mystery of PolyU for you, Simone. What is the let's see, how is that phrased? What is your trajectory from your PhD to your current role at PolyU, and the words on the street is that all the lecturer assistant professors should have a large number of publications. Love to hear from you. What can you share?
Okay. So yeah, to come back 1 second to the previous one, I also think that we should also aim for A+ journal. But a suggestion that I would like to share is that I sometimes, I mean, most of the times I write my paper and then I look at what I cited. If I see that I cited from, I don't know, tourism management a lot, that means I'm actually joining the conversation that is going on at tourism management. So that's how I normally choose one or the other. Regarding my experience at PolyU, I didn't have 20 papers after I graduated. And I think it was a positive thing, to be honest. Not have too many. Sometimes too many is not the best. I had 5 publications. And yeah, here you need to publish a lot. Absolutely, the pressure is very high. It comes with a job, right? But yeah, that's what it was. I was on the market. PolyU had an opportunity. I tried, and I came here. I liked the city. I liked the people, and so yeah, I was lucky enough to get an offer. And here I am. I wouldn't know any other. If you have some more specific suggestion that you would like to ask, please just ask.
Okay. Any advice on how to split your dissertation into several manuscripts? I guess this question is about if you divide your dissertation into multiple manuscripts, then the slices may be too thin. I don't know if you did that, or how did you do it? Any advice? Any of you?
I unfortunately don't have many advices because my dissertation was already set to be a 3-paper dissertation. So I did not do a full dissertation, but a collection of paper. So I didn't have to go and butcher the whole dissertation. I just try now to publish each piece of it. So sorry, I cannot be of help in this.
Okay, Sarah?
Yeah, I was also the same. My thesis was by publication, so 3 papers.
Okay, all right, Bora?
Yeah, I didn't do a PhD by publication, so I did have 3 studies for my dissertation, but it doesn't mean that I slice it so that I can publish 3. Maybe ideally that could be possible, but for publishing, maybe out of the 3, maybe you will just publish the most important bit in your opinion first, and then you will see how the other 2 can build upon the already published articles, because by the time you publish after the PhD, maybe you need to update your database, or you can extend some kind of theoretical framework and implications and practical implications as well, because normally you don't have a whole lot of time to finish your final dissertation. So I think for the publication quality, some other work might be needed. So in my opinion, I think you can still design your study to kind of slice your PhD dissertation into different studies. But I think for the better quality, sometimes supplement work will be needed.
Great. Michael, you had your hands up earlier.
Yes, Professor Xu, thank you for hosting this seminar. As a ECR myself, I totally can relate to my friend Simone and Bora here. They are great researcher, but I also couldn't help notice that so many students actually in this webinar. I have been asked for so many times, like, what have you wish you had known before you joined a academic job when you were still a PhD student? Is it now most of you are actually in academic job for a couple of years now, or Simone for one fresh semester? Do you have any particular advice for the PhD student, or for them to know before they get ready for the academic job so that they can be a little bit more ready? Thank you.
Great question. Good observation. Simone, you're gonna go first.
Thank you, Michael, for the question. So personally going into, I would say more PhD. I had less idea of what to expect from PhD rather than the job. But going into PhD, I knew that it was a lot of work, but I didn't know that it would have been that difficult. So that I really need to study a lot, not just put work in, but to study a lot. And to me, it was also difficult, was not expected, not kind of what expected, but a suggestion is that you really, if you're getting into the academia, into this industry, that you need to be passionate about what you do. We are all working. Me and Michael, sometimes we meet in the office at 10 p.m. going out of the office, and I'm sure Bora and Sarah, they are in the same boat. You need to work a lot. There is a lot to do. So you need to be passionate about what is your topic. So find something that is that makes you passionate, and then pursue there. That's, I think, is the most important thing.
Should I go next? Sure.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are many things that you could think of. One analogy that I heard when I was a PhD student is that a faculty job is just more advanced PhD when you're already feeling difficult in your PhD. So I'm like, okay, but actually I feel like post PhD is even more exciting personally. I think PhD is not just the end, it's just kind of the certification that you can do your research independently, and you know how to do rigorous research and so on. So I think having this PhD kind of gives you the confidence that yes, you could do the more exciting things after PhD. You don't have to suffer from those uncertainty whether you will make it or not. I think it gives you even more academic kind of freedom, because now that you have this certification, now go explore even more exciting research questions. So I think personally there's still a lot more excitement after PhD. So I think this is something that you could look forward to look on the bright side. And as an advisee, I think we can observe the good examples of advising students, because as an advisee, you would know what is the good practice and what is not so good practice. So I think because you will be an advisor in the not too distant future, sometimes right away after your PhD, I think it's really good to have this good style of developing good style of giving mentorship to other people, and also how to guide earlier career researchers as an independent researcher would be a good tip. So when you're a PhD student, maybe observe, yes, this is really good way to advise people and educate people, and that maybe this is really helpful for improving PhD students' well-being, then you can make it your own. So I think those kind of tips would be useful to think of.
Great. Sarah?
I think when you're a PhD student, all you're focused on is completing this PhD, completing this, and that's all you're sort of thinking about. Well, personally, that was all I was thinking about, was getting these 3 papers done, completing the PhD, and that was it. What I wish I would have done in the PhD journey really is thinking beyond PhD. What did I want to do? And I think if I had to do it all over again, I would probably have tried to, I know that there's supervisors who are, your PhD supervisors, but there are also mentors that you can also reach out to. And I wish I had done that earlier in my PhD journey. But that happened in my ECR journey. But I think it's really important because they will open up doors for you as well. As long as you can show that, you're a hard worker, you can publish, you can do the work. But it's really important as well to just reach out to mentors in academia who will help you through that ECR journey. And then likewise, just like Bora was saying, as ECRs, I think we also have a responsibility as well when we're in this journey to also give opportunities to either research assistants or even your PhD students where it's suitable for them to be a co-author on your own manuscript, so you can also leave a sort of legacy as well for them.
Great. Excellent answers to all the questions. I hope the participants have, at least each one of you have a few takeaways. Definitely work hard. I know all of you do. Go out and create your network. Don't be afraid to make contact with people you know or even don't know. Just approach them, be more proactive, be passionate about the topic that you select, and many other things, time management. So it's not an easy journey, but if you're interested, then it's not hard work, right? So when you're doing your PhD, you feel like, wow, this is really hard. Just wait until you finish your PhD, start your new job. That's you have to work even harder. And for the young researchers, very often you will think, oh, once I get promoted, the life will be easier. It doesn't go that way. You just get busier and busier and busier. But that's the profession that we choose. So as long as you're enjoying it, it's all that matters, right? So great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Simone. Thank you,
Thank you.
Sarah, and thank you,
you.
Bora, for spending your hour out of your busy schedule. I hope that doesn't affect your research productivity very much, but you certainly help the others set good examples and others can follow. So I hope the participants have enjoyed this webinar. And we will post this online soon for other people's viewing. So thank you again for joining us, and
Thank you.
enjoy the rest of your day or evening, or we'll see you next time.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.